This wasn't under warranty, this was completely user error. I effed up, my X-T30 and my wallet paid the price. Let's talk about the life and death of my Fujifilm X-T30. You ready? Let's go. So the main reason behind the X-T30 purchase was to work as a B cam alongside the X-T4, but also I wanted a smaller camera, mainly as a daily driver, a travel camera. So I had previously purchased another X-T3 through another company who, I'm not going to name drop in this, but it's not the first time I've had issues with them. On arrival of the second X-T30, so this one came from the fantastic Park cameras here in UK, it was perfect. Out of the box, I mean, they marked it down as very good condition. Honestly, it looked completely new. You would not know that it had actually been used at all. That same week, I put it through its paces. It ran as the B camera during a pretty big gig for me. So I was shooting a graduation event of 180 people. So it was a very testing scenario. For the most part, the X-T4 was what was in my hands. So on these kind of events, I will take with me a Peak designed sling to try and keep my kit to a minimum. And in that bag, I'll have my spare lenses and I will also have my flash unit. I also have a Peak design capture clip mount on the side of that bag, where the X-T30 spent most of the night, and I had the 35mm f1.4 on it, and the Fujifilm X-T4 I was mainly using the Viltrox 56 1.4, which did amazing, by the way. I may do a review on that lens soon. Now during that shoot I did swap out and I used the X-T30 for a little bit along with that 35mm, and I've got to say, when you're in a really big crowd, it's such an inconspicuous camera that I was able to get some fantastic images where people didn't even bat an eyelid at me, which is really good for that documentary style that I personally prefer. Now at the end of the night, everyone was starting to go home and we'd got quite a nice sunset in the evening, so I was looking to get some final location shots of the area, and I got some pretty nice ones. But as I was walking to the car on the way home at the end of the shoot, I went to put the X-T30 back on the capture clip and somehow part of it came loose and the camera went tumbling. So from hip height, the camera dropped fully on its lens. At this point, I had actually changed it to the Sigma 18-50 f2.8, review up here, or up here, and the X-T30 fell from hip height straight onto bare concrete. The noise, whew, that was horrendous. Now, I picked it up, the bottom plate was dinged and scratched to hell. I didn't take any pictures of it, unfortunately, but it was a bit of a mess considering this looked like a brand new camera. The Sigma was fine, surprisingly. I think the lens hood took a little bit of the brunt, but for the most part, the camera, you know, it turned on. Everything seemed okay. I didn't have time to do an initial inspection because I wanted to get home, but it turned on and I was like, okay, cool, so it's not broke. I went home and after some further inspection, the X-T30 wasn't actually recognising the aperture settings on any of my lenses. I made sure that I wasn't in manual, and it wasn't actually recognising the aperture setting from any of the lenses, and it wasn't focusing. Autofocus just didn't seem to work anymore. And every lens was set to an aperture of 0, which I've seen before when I've used vintage lenses on Fujifilm cameras. Now this obviously got me a little bit concerned, so I did some further inspection, and apart from the scratches, I couldn't see any further damage. So that was it. The X-T30 must have had some kind of broken contact internally, and it just wasn't picking up that aperture setting anymore. At this point, I contacted my point of purchase, Park Cameras. They were fantastic, they were very quick and clear, and they did recommend that I can either send it into them, and then there'll be a small charge, and they'll send it on to Fuji. But what I did is I actually went through one of the Fujifilm groups I'm part of, and they recommended that I sent it directly to Fuji, which tends to be a lot quicker. And as I shoot paid gigs, I wanted this back pretty quickly. So I went through the repair process with Fujifilm. This is the UK department, just to clarify again. And I've got to say, the experience was quite something. So I registered the product, I put a few brief words about what was going on with the X-T30, and they sent me a bill of £166 there and then, and my assumption was that this was to cover shipping both ways and also the actual inspection. We'll get back to that point. So, the next day, the DPD parcel arrives. next day delivery, and it's DPD, and DPD around here are pretty reliable, so I was quite happy with that. So the parcel that arrived from DPD was a box, and inside that box was a very well packaged box. If you've seen one of these Fujifilm boxes, I'm sorry, it sucks. You've probably broken something. I feel your pain. And inside this box, we have extremely dense packing foam with a little cutout that you can put everything in. Really good job. Really quick, really efficient. So, I packaged up my X-T30 and that got there the next day. Fantastic. So far, a day to get a box to me, a day to get the box back to them. Now that did unfortunately fall over a weekend. So the X-T30 arrived with them on the Monday, and by midday Tuesday, I'd had an email to say that the camera was coming back to me. Fantastic. That's a really quick turnaround. It's not even been with them for 24 hours. However, I did have to read the email a couple of times because the opening line starts with, "We regret." At that point, my heart has dropped and I am devastated. "We regret that you had to send your product to us for repair. However, we are pleased to return it to you in full working order." What? Don't ever start a message like that with "we regret," dudes. Almost gave me a heart attack. On the invoice, it stated that the top plate, the bottom plate, a flexible connector had all been replaced and the firmware updated, and they'd not charged me a single penny more. £166 for shipping both ways, fantastic packaging, good communication along the way, and all those replacement parts. I couldn't believe it, and I didn't believe it. So I waited. The next day that parcel came, and I was frankly a little bit anxious because it seemed too good to be true. That's not a lot of money for quite a lot of work that they'd put in at their end. This wasn't under warranty, this was completely user error. I effed up my X-T30 and my wallet paid the price. But here she is, and she's good, and she's working. I can hardly believe it. And that's the reason I'm making this video. I don't feel enough people go out of their way to say when someone has done a good job. So Fujifilm UK, thank you. You saved my ass. You're way cheaper than I thought you were going to be, and you did a great job. Anyone else that has these issues, if you break your camera, obviously your mileage may vary on what can actually be done, but they did me a solid here and I appreciate that. Alright. Maybe more reviews coming soon. X-T30, Viltrox 56, who knows. See you next time. Peace.